Welcome to the Jackson Rudolph podcast. I am your host, Jackson Rudolph, and this is episode 39, brought to you by Black Belt Magazine. And today we have the man, the myth, the legend, Jack Felton on the show. He's somebody that I've got as one of my top 5 lightweight point fighters of all time. This man is the real deal. He's been winning for as long as I can remember, literally from the moment that I stepped on the circuit. Jack Felton has been winning overall point fighting grands, so that tells you a little bit about his greatness. And we're going to get more into talking about some of his favorite fighters of all time as the show goes on. So thank you to everyone that's tuning in, and thank you to Jack for joining us today. And first off, Jack, I'll just let you introduce yourself a little bit. I mean, tell us your martial arts journey. What brought you here?
Yeah, thanks, Jackson. Thanks for putting me on today. I started martial arts as a child. I think I was about 7 years old. My dad was into martial arts, and he just guided me to kind of get me in there. And I started doing it, and I liked it. We did like a father-son thing for a long time. And then he got a little older, stopped doing it. And he took me to a lot of the tournaments like around the West Coast. It really got me involved with competing, and was very active on that part. And yeah, I started competing as a yellow belt. I was terrible at first. I did all the color belts, and I lost pretty much every tournament until I got to like brown belt, black belt level. I started doing better then, and then fought as a junior, like around the West Coast, until I was about like 14, and then like 14, 15, started doing like the East Coast. Then I turned about 16. I started going over to Europe and fighting up there a lot. So yeah, just kind of expanded as I grew up, competing through the years as a junior, and then continued doing it and still doing it. So yeah, that's how I'm here today.
Mm-hmm. And we talk about, expanding your competitive horizons. I mean, there's a brand new style of competition that's out right now through the Virtual Fight Tour. They're really the first entity to bring a pay-per-view style point fighting match with the matches being selected, right? Typically at a point fighting event, a sport karate event, you'd have to be going through a bracket, and the fight that everybody wants to see might happen in the semifinal or final, but there could be an upset that messes that up along the way, right? So
Right.
with the Virtual Fight Tour and Jesse Ray's promotion, now we're actually able to we want to see fighter A fight fighter B, and it's going to happen. So tell us a little bit about preparing for Virtual Fight Tour. Now, one thing that I will say in this intro is that you just took a big win, 4-point victory over Bailey Murphy, who won at the first Virtual Fight Tour event over Tyreek Saint. So now you've evened his record at 1-1. You improved to 1-0 on the Virtual Fight Tour in your debut. So tell us a little bit about preparing for that. What's it like preparing for just one fighter as opposed to a bracket? And then, of course, the 3-round format, which is much longer than the divisional 1 round that you normally fight, or 2 rounds in grands.
Yeah, so I think it's amazing. And I know right now with the COVID, it's really tough to do the tournaments and have everyone coming in just with all the protocols. So yeah, I think it's an awesome avenue. Everyone gets tested and kind of gets put in a bubble. So everyone is safe, and then from there, yeah, it's not like a tournament where you have that top fighter in your division you got to look out for, but you got usually a bunch of good fighters, and anyone could win or lose on that day. So yeah, that's who you're fighting as you going in, and yeah, it was a great matchup. Bailey's an amazing fighter, nothing but huge respect for him. I didn't do a whole lot of studying of tape. I know a lot of fighters like watch videos. I've seen Bailey fight, so I know like generally what he's good at, and from there it was just more about what I do and imposing things that I do well in the match. The training was kind of tricky just because there's been a lot of fires in California, so the air quality has really been terrible. So, I mean, that has been tough. There's days where I'm like, should I go run? Should I not? Is it going to be beneficial or harmful? But a lot of days I ended up just got to do what you got to do, and ended up I felt great. The 3 rounds, I always feel like conditioning is one of my strong points. So I felt 3 rounds was awesome for me, and I really like that deep water, as they say. So, yeah, I thought it was a great avenue for the modern times right now, and I think it's awesome. People can tune in and watch. I know a lot of my friends and people from all over the world can tune in and watch it. So I thought it was an amazing event, and looking forward to many more.
Absolutely. And it's like you said, it's great for the spectators, and you and Bailey certainly put on a show. And honestly, I'm not surprised to hear that was kind of your strategy going into it, was to quite literally impose your will, fight the fight that you wanted to fight. And I think that a lot of people who watched the stream, and by the way, for those of you that didn't catch the live stream, I believe that Jesse Ray typically does like a rebroadcast where you can actually purchase to watch the fights in post. And I highly recommend doing that because every fight on the card in this event was fantastic. But if you do go back and watch the fight, that was one of the things that I was interested to see going into it was, because I've always thought of you as a very good defensive fighter, somebody that can kind of react to other styles and then be able to find your opportunities to score based off of reacting to them. Whereas in this fight, I thought you did an excellent job of setting the tone, setting the pace, and I think that's reflected in the preparation that you have for it. I do want to talk a little bit about some of the special attributes of fighting in the virtual fight tour. The most obvious one being you're fighting in a cage, whereas normally you're in a 6x6 ring where, if you wind up falling out of the ring or running out of the ring, whatever the case may be, that's not the end of the world. But here you're in a cage, so you get stuck. So was there anything different about your preparation, or was there anything unexpected about the way the fight changed once you were in that cage?
So I did know we were going to be in a cage, but I thought there was going to be boundaries in the cage. I did think there was still going to be the out of bounds. And that comes with its own tactics there with fighting in like a normal ring. So, but like it didn't really throw me off because just like when you're in a dojo, like there's a wall right there, there's a mirror right there. So like when you're sparring in the dojo, like you have those same boundaries. So it's not like very foreign, right? A lot of times, I'm sparring and I'm along the mirror or my partner's along the mirror or whatever, and you don't just stop and come back in the middle, right? You got to work off that. So I mean, it was pretty much. That's pretty much how I looked at it. Like it's not anything different than what I'm used to. I actually did some training, some drills in a cage, but like I don't really think the cage came into play at all. I thought it was a beautiful cage. The ring was really nice, the material was really nice, and I thought I gave it a nice look too. So I think it was pretty cool to put in there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so now shifting to some of the rules in particular, one of the rules that we saw come into play twice in the event was the overtime rules. Now, your fight didn't wind up having to go to overtime, but two of the other fights did. And the way that Virtual Fight Tour does it is rather unique. The fighters actually have the chance to agree on overtime rules, whether they want to do sudden death or add an extra minute. In the first event, we saw Kevin Walker and Ryan George ultimately do an extra minute. In both of these overtimes, one time the fighters disagreed, one time they agreed on what they would do, but both wound up being sudden death. What do you think of that rule and the fighters being able to choose? And if you had been put in that situation, which side do you think you would lean on, or would it based on how the fight's going?
Oh yeah, I thought it's awesome. I fought, obviously both styles where it's like the sudden death next point and also the extra round or half round with a minute. So, I mean, for me, I didn't have a strategy on, I just was going to go kind of on how I was feeling. I know my conditioning is really strong, so the minute probably would have favored me. But I mean, it kind of depends on the whole scenario and situation of the fight. I mean, I could have wanted that 1.2. So I can't say if I'd have leaned one way or the other. I was just kind of go with the flow of it as that opportunity came. But it never got to that. So it didn't matter too much to me. But yeah, I thought it was super exciting. To watch the other fights, those go into overtime and kind of see what was going to be the ending, how it ended. And I thought it was very dramatic and it was awesome to watch.
Absolutely. Definitely great for entertainment value. And I think at the end of the day, the best strategy is to try to not get to overtime in the first place, right?
Yeah,
you don't want to be in that situation. There is one more rule that I actually forgot about when I was writing the script or the questions for us today that I do want to ask you about real briefly, because I've noticed some fighters have very different opinions about this. In Virtual Fight Tour, unlike in NASCA, which is the prominent North American league that a lot of the great fighters fight on, kind of the same level of the WACO that you have in Europe, that's what NASCA is to North America. I think a lot of people would agree with that. NASCA, it's 2 points for a kick to the body. Virtual Fight Tour, it's 1 point for body kicks. Where are you on that debate? Do you think they should be 1? Do you think they should be 2? Defensive side kick to the body, any kick to the body.
I mean, it changes the fight a lot with the 2 point kicks to the body. I favored a 1 point kicks to the body. I used to fight in NBL a lot, and that was the rules there. And WACO, it's the same way. And NASCA, I don't mind it though either. I mean, you got to adjust your fighting style to the 2 point body kicks. I would prefer 1 point for the body kick. So I liked how that went for the Virtual Fight Tour.
Mhm. And I feel like most of the fighters that I've asked that question had that same opinion. At the end of the day, you don't care. You're going to fight and you're going to adjust your strategy based on the rules of the fight. But I think that the two prominent ones that have said we prefer the 1 point body kicks are Cameron Dawson and Ross Levine. Ross, we know how lethal his defensive sidekick is. So it's just interesting to hear, fighters with that weapon. And obviously your defensive sidekick is one of the best too. So to hear fighters with that weapon say, no, just give me 1 point. That's how I prefer it. I always think that that's interesting. And there's a lot of, I know that ProMac, which is kind of an up and coming regional league that's got some really great events. They've kind of been basing how they're going to structure those rules as far as 1 or 2 point body kicks based on what the fighters are saying. So it's good to get that perspective. I want to shift off of that event in particular with the virtual fight tour now and just talk about your career more in general. As long as I've been around, your name has been synonymous with the All-Stars. That's who you've represented as long as I've known you. And the All-Stars is one of the most prestigious teams and one of the greatest fighting teams ever assembled. So tell us a little bit about how you came to represent All-Stars and maybe your relationship with Raymond Daniels, who's obviously a great leader for you guys' team and now a professional MMA fighter for Bellator. Obviously the Bellator kickboxing champion in the welterweight, if I've got that right.
Welterweight, I think.
Yeah. But anyway, so tell us a bit about how you came to be on Team All-Stars.
So I've grown up with Raymond ever since I was a kid. We lived together when I was like all through my teenage years. And so we've always been like brothers. And we always like traveled to tournaments together, even though we weren't on the same team. Back then I was on Victory, he was on Paul Mitchell. And just like after a while, we like doing the American tournaments, but we like kind of like traveling more and like getting the experience of seeing different regions, just testing ourselves in different areas of the world, not just doing the kind of like the same routine that we had been doing. And then some of the other like great fighters that we are great friends with, we kind of all just came together. And Hugh Smith was like our manager, still is. But the original team was myself, Robbie Lavoie, who were like the younger guys back then, and then it was Raymond, it was Jason Tanks and Borelli, and it was Jotty Tension. So we had an amazing team, and we were able to go all around competing around the world, and it was a great experience, and we're still doing it. Obviously, the team is a lot bigger and different now. I mean, our first guy to pick up after that was Chris Walker, because we wanted a forums guy who could fight too. And so Chris fit that mold perfectly, and he's still out there fighting and still doing great. He's really involved with the sport. So that's how we came together. It was 2005. It's 2020, and we're still going strong.
Very cool. Absolutely going strong. I mean, you guys have continued to recruit great fighters. I remember I've known Ross Cook for a long time, and I remember Ross Cook and some of the great fights he had, especially at Irish Open. And then, of course, the reigning Irish Open champion, Elijah Everill's an all-star as well. So you guys continue to bring in great talent, and it's really special to see.
Walker is one of our top
Evan Walker, of course. How could I forget him? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. You mentioned, and this is also sidetracking a little bit, but I'm curious. You mentioned bringing in Chris Walker because he had the forms and weapons abilities in addition to the fighting. But when you were a junior, you were a forms and weapons competitor as well, right?
Yeah. When I was a kid, I did it. I competed like creative weapons and traditional forms. So I'm still teaching like forms and weapons and things like that. But my competing days in there is probably retired. But I still enjoy forums, and I used to compete with it all the time. Yes, I know Sport Martial Arts. They sometimes dig up some old videos of me. I think just embarrass me and put it up there.
That's awesome. Very cool. So now moving on from All-Stars, the All-Stars is not the only team that you've ever fought for alongside Raymond Daniels. In the World Combat League, you fought for the Los Angeles Stars, which I assume has to have some connection there in the naming convention. But tell us a little bit about that experience, how the rules were different. If I'm not mistaken, that was a promotion of Chuck Norris's, right? So that was a pretty big deal. So just tell us a little bit about your experience on the World Combat League.
Yeah, World Combat League was awesome. It was broadcast on national television on the Versus channel for a long time. So, I mean, all my friends would be watching and they'd be tuning in. And the way it got started, Raymond got me introduced into it. I remember one year we had to go to the Irish Open, and he was staying back for the World Combat League, like one of its like first events. And of course, he knocked the guy out with like a spectacular spin hook kick. But it was me, Jason Tanks, and Robbie Lavoie out in Ireland. We ended up fighting and winning the teams there. When I got back, Raymond was saying like, "Oh, how amazing it was," and he wanted me to do it. So I was like, "All right, yeah, let's do it." I had a lot of continuous sparring experience as a kid, and I'd fought in a couple professional kickboxing fights like in Vegas, so I wasn't any stranger to it. And so we joined the team, and at first a lot of people were like, because there was other point sparrers as well on the team too. It was like Donald Vickers, Tara Van Duzen, Jessica. There was a lot of us, and so a lot of like the traditional kickboxers and Muay Thai guys were kind of looking at us like we could just like tip tap, and like didn't really respect us very much. So let's put it that way. And then by the end of it, they were like trying to adapt everything. We're trying to learn what we were doing, because just the movement and understanding spacing and timing, I think, was just huge. And it was a great platform for us. And we ended up, I believe we went undefeated. I don't know if we won. No, I think we did. But we went undefeated, and we ended up winning the championship there. I still got a big old nice championship ring from them. And it was great. Loved fighting. It was like in a bowl type area. I'm sure a lot of people, if you haven't seen it, it's a cool, kind of unique ring to fight in. And it was very high paced. They wouldn't let you like circle too long or stall. So it was always a lot of knockouts and a lot of striking. So I thought it was great. Ended up stopping after a couple of years, but I really enjoyed it while I was in there.
Yeah, that sounds like an awesome experience. And one thing that, when you can actually still go back and see their website and see like the results of a lot of the matches and everything. And I noticed that a lot of the matches would have final scores of like 144 to 137. How did the scoring work? Was it literally just judges with like trying to tally every single time that a technique lands? Or?
So it's been a while, but each round was scored, I think, there's 3 judges, and like it was kind of like a 10-9 round, right? But it would be 5-4 or 5-3, right? Or 5-2. So each round would be like, and then there was a team, right? So I think there was like 6 fighters depending on the weight category and the girls. So let's say like I fought a round and I won, it would be like 15-12, right? Or if I like knocked the guy down a bunch of times, I kind of crushed, it would be like 15-9, right? And then that would be for the whole team, and that was just the first half. Then you had a second half. So that's kind of how the scoring went, and that's why you had kind of those high ones. Then if you got a knockout, right, it'd be 15-0. So I mean, that would be like a huge bonus for your team. That's how the scoring goes. That's how you see some of those numbers.
That's really cool. That was just something I was interested in when I was doing my research, and I saw those numbers. I was like, man, that's a lot of points for a.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there were some like crazy close ones. So I think the final championship match, I mean, Raymond had to go in there and had to knock the guy out for the team to win. Yeah, and he ended up knocking him out, of course, with the jump spin hook kick, and that's how we won a championship. So I mean, it was awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, that had to be thrilling too. I hope that maybe some of our viewers can go and find footage of that somewhere, maybe in the archives of YouTube or whatever.
Yeah.
So now I want to shift a little bit more to your history. So one of the things that I've always felt is most iconic about the legend of Jack Felton is your nickname, the Iceman, right? You got 2 nicknames. All your teammates call you Captain Jack, and I love that one too. Obviously, the reference to Captain Jack Sparrow and your leadership role on the All-Star team, right? But the Iceman is one that, to me, is shrouded in a little bit of mystery. So how did the Iceman come to be? Where did that start?
So I got that as like a child, almost like when I got my black belt, probably when I was like 10 or 11 years old. My instructor just gave it to me just because he said I was always like very calm and collected, like in like tough spots. He said I wasn't very emotional. I was very like stoic in matches, and so he always just called me the Iceman, and that came out, and I've had that one ever since I've been doing it since I was a little kid.
Very cool. So the next thing that we're going to shift to is you've been a top fighter for a really long time, and one of the hardest events to be successful at is the Irish Open. And you've made it to the Irish Open final as many times as anybody that I can imagine. It seems like every single year you're in that fighter and fighting the best fighters in the world. So the first thing that I want to ask you about that is, how do you prepare for an event like that where you're getting a deeper bracket in the open weight? You could literally fight anybody in the world, right? So how do you prepare for an event like that, and what has made you so consistently successful at the Irish Open?
One is experience. I've been there a bunch. I started going 16. I remember, I think my second year I went, and my first year I did pretty good as a 16-year-old. I lost to Mike Pombero in the open weight, and I won my weight category as a 16-year-old, minus 62 kilograms. So it felt good. And the next year I went, and I fought some guy and I just kind of overlooked him thinking I was going to beat him because I never seen him. Probably looked kind of funny from some weird country. I ended up losing, and I was like, man, so I know that you can't like overlook anybody. Like, because even if you don't know them, they don't have a name. You know, these guys are all trained from different areas, got different styles. And so I really took that one to heart to never like just overlook like, oh, I got to fight so-and-so in a couple of fights because you might not make it there. So that's a big part of it, is not overlooking anybody. And through that, just taking it match by match and point by point. I always make sure that my conditioning is top level. That way I can do my best and show my best, and I just take it one match at a time. And then usually I just take one step up. If I'm trying to think about the final match, you know, a lot of times you don't get there. I just take it whoever's in front of me at that time.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that's the right approach, and obviously it's worked very well for you. Now, one thing that you mentioned there is winning your weight class when you were 16. And by the way, losing in the open weight to Mike Palmero, who's also one of the all-time great fighters. There's no shame in that, especially at 16. And I know that you guys trained together quite a bit, right?
Yeah. He was a big part of my training camp, getting ready for this fight with Bailey. We sparred consistently, and he would always press me, and he still does all the time. I'll see him on Sunday for more sparring. So yeah, he's one of my idols and one of my training partners, and he's really shaped me to who I am today.
Very cool. And I always looked up to Mike because, as you know, I've been a guy who's been Paul Mitchell bleeding black and white my entire career. And so Mike Palmero being one of our leaders of the team, especially when I first got started competing, he was always somebody that I looked up to a great deal as well. Now, also, you won your division at the Irish Open when you were just 16. You were a great, obviously you got to be a great fighter, win your division at the Irish Open, but you were also winning American events, competing in the adult division at some of those events at the age of 16. And that led to what many people now call the Jack Felton rule. So I want you to talk a little bit about what is the Jack Felton rule and kind of how did all that get started?
Yeah. So I've been competing juniors since I was like 9, 10 years old. You know, I did teams, I was started as a little man, then I was the middle man, then I was the big man, right? And when I was after the 14, 15-year-old division, like I had already been like doing juniors for a while, and I felt like I wanted to really challenge myself and press myself to get better and take the next step. So I just skipped the 16, 17-year-old division and just went straight into the adults. I remember showing up to the first tournament, the California tournament, and people were like, "Oh, you're not in this division?" Like, no, I'm fighting a different division. And so I ended up fighting like 4 or 5 tournaments before, the promoters caught on. And I guess for the liabilities in America, they didn't want a kid fighting as an adult. So they made the rule, the Jack Felton rule, that you have to be 18 to fight in the 18-year-olds, which is one of the reasons why I went over to Europe more, is because they don't have that rule and they don't have those legalities. So I would go out there and really challenge myself against, grown men, still at 16. So I think that's a big part of my growth is through that way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, as a coach, I'm somebody that has always, if my students are, say a brown belt or whatever, and they're going to be getting their black belt in 6 months, but from a competitive standpoint, they're ready to test themselves up against the black belts. I always recommend to those students, hey, get yourself a black belt, go ahead, go compete in the tournament, because you need to be tested against this higher level of talent. And I kind of see that issue the same way with jumping up in the age division. And I would think that it's just an issue of, oh, well, you don't want the liability of minors fighting adult competitors. But in the forms and weapons division, it's enforced the same way, because I was somebody, and a lot of people might not know this, I was somebody who wanted to go and test myself in the adults when I was 16, 17 years old in forms and weapons, and they didn't let me do it either, and cited, the Jack Felton rule. So I guess what's your take on, obviously you went to Europe and you competed over there to fight against those higher level adult fighters over in Europe. So what is your take on, should right now 16, 17-year-olds be able to move up? And I guess the second part of that is, because I assume the answer is yes, right? The second part of that is, what do you think there should be some type of qualification for it? Do you have to win a certain number of overall grands, or, I mean, what are your thoughts and feelings about that?
Yeah, of course. I think people should be able to step up. I mean, just like you said, with the color belts move to black belts, I actually never thought about it in forms. I mean, yeah, what's the reason why a forms competitor couldn't do it? I mean, they're not getting punched. But I mean, I think if if they were, I think the promoters weren't worried about, getting in trouble with the legal action, then I think, yeah, people should definitely be able to do it. I mean, just like you, like I have my kids, if they're doing well in their age bracket, go up an age bracket, right? So, I mean, definitely I think it's good for everybody to be able to step up. Actually, one of my training partners, Pal, he's doing really good too, and so he's trying to move up. And sometimes they give him flack for doing it. So I mean, it's tough in America. I get it, but I mean, if you have the opportunities to go outside of America and compete that way, that's one avenue to be able to do it. I wish they had the opportunity to do it here, but I mean, you just gotta, I think, pick and choose and kind of be sly with where you get in. I think you can still do it.
Right, absolutely. And one thing that I want to make sure is clear to our audience is that neither Jack nor I are advocating for snaking your way around the rules. You should only fight how it is legal in the rules. You should only compete how it is legal in the rules of the league that you choose to compete in. What Jack is saying is that you can find other leagues and places that it is legal for you to make those jumps in the age categories. Actually, at least the way that it works at Irish Open and Waco for Forms and Weapons is if you are – I believe the way that it works is, let's say you're 17 and the adult division's 18, you can actually compete up in the 18-year-old division and compete in your own 16, 17-year-old division, which is, again, there's a bunch of different ways that all these different major leagues arbitrate these rules and the way the rule books are written. One of the most impressive things about Jack is that regardless of the rule book, regardless of what country he's in or who's in front of him, he's had a whole lot of success in his career and a whole lot of wins. So I guess my question to you now is, do you have a favorite? I mean, tell us what are your favorite stories? What are your big career highlights?
One of my favorites, I would say, again, going back to when I was around 16, I think that was a big part of like growing, is I was able to fight on the USA Waco team in the World Championships. And I remember I was on a team with like Preston Clemens, Jotty, Reggie, Tara. I mean, it was a really high caliber team. I was in Paris, France, and it was a great like learning tool for me because in my division, I think it was minus 69s. I remember like two like of the top favorites were myself and this Canadian guy Fortunato, and like I myself figured like we were going to end up meeting up at the top, and actually we both ended up losing I think in the quarterfinals, and we're both out. So again, like not looking too far ahead in the future, you know, like staying right where you are. I ended up losing to a Slovenian fighter. And yeah, I mean, I was super bummed. Ended up like not reaching my goal, but I mean, it was good. It was a learning process, and I think I needed that. So I was able to return and fight back in the Waco World Championships. I believe it was like 2015, and ended up turning out. I ended up getting to fight for the gold medal against a Slovenian fighter, a very good fighter, Chilean. And yeah, that really gave me a lot of motivation or just extra, extra grit, and I went out there and performed really well. I was able to bring home the gold medal, and that was that meant a lot to me. Just like how that kind of like worked out in the parallels of both the times I was able to fight in the World Championship arena.
Yeah, it's really cool how those storylines tend to play out throughout a career. I want to add to that a little bit because I know you've been a part of a ton of legendary team fights with all of the great teammates that you've had throughout the years, whether it be with Waco or for the All-Stars or whatever. Are there any like big team fighting moments of like an entire team effort that stand out to you as like just being a crazy matchup?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, I would say a top team moment that a lot of people, I think, is the All-Stars versus the Corrali Hungarians. And we've been going out and kind of fighting with them for a long time out in Europe. And I'm not sure the year it was. I want to say it was like 3 years ago. It was the All-Stars again versus Corrali for the final at the Irish Open. And it was myself, Jamal Albini, Trevor Nash, and Raymond Daniels against their team. I want to say it was Christian. It was Zolt, Laszlo, Thomas, and I want to say Richie. Sorry, it was Richie. And yeah. So it was 4 fighters, and it went by points that time. Sometimes they go by matches, like whoever wins the matches. But this time it was by points, total points won. And our first guy, Jamal, he went out there, he fought Zolt, and Zolt was just on fire. I think Zolt won by like 12 points. So I mean, we were really really in a tough spot. And then I think Raymond went out there and fought Richie, and Richie moved really well. And Raymond won, but he only won by like 3 or 4, something like that. And then Trevor went out, and Trevor is big and strong. He fought Thomas, and Trevor did a great job. He ended up winning, I think, by like 5 or 6. And so it was the final match. I went in, and I think I was still down by like 5 points or 6 points against Laszlo, and ended up coming back and then winning like right at the buzzer. Got the last point to go up, and then the time was out. And yeah, it was a huge comeback to that build-up. And I think, yeah, that just was one of the best team matches I've ever been a part of.
Yeah, certainly an excellent comeback, and one of the reasons that I remember it so vividly, for those of you that don't know, so Paul Mitchell, my team in the past, has signed a lot of the Hungarian fighters. So at the time of that team fight, I'm pretty sure we had either already signed or were planning on signing. We definitely had already signed Zoltan Laszlo to Paul Mitchell, and I think we were kind of in the talking phase of adding Tomas and Richie to that as well. And so watching that fight and seeing my guys lose to the All-Stars was a bit painful. But it's funny because it's a conversation I have with Avery Plowden a lot, because, you know, Avery and I know each other well. And, you know, I'll go up to Avery and I'll be like, hey, I'm rooting for you as long as you're not against one of my Paul Mitchell guys. And the same is true for you, Jack. I mean, you're somebody that I have a ton of respect for. And even when you beat my Paul Mitchell guys, it's I can't help but appreciate the level of talent that you put out there and the greatness that you've shown. And, you know, that's gained my respect to the extent that I have no problem saying, in my opinion, you are one of the top 5 lightweight point fighters of all time in my book. If you disagree with me, somebody drop it in the comments. I don't care. That's my opinion. I'm sticking to it. But I'm curious, from your perspective, Jack, if you had to build a Mount Rushmore, your 4 lightweight point fighters that you put above everybody else, who would be on that Mount Rushmore for you?
All right, it's a tough one. I mean, there's been so many great fighters. So, I mean, no disrespect to anyone. But just for people that I saw, like, growing up, like, I know Tony Young was amazing. I know Mike Stone was amazing, but I didn't get to see them so much, like personally, right? So, I mean, I'm going to put people that I saw in my, my generation, all right? So, my top guy is Pedro Xavier. Paul Mitchell, like, amazing, super fast, wiry, all well-rounded fighter. I know he was known for his boxing, but I mean, he had all the tools. So, I mean, he would be number 1. I'm going to put 2 people as one person next to him, which sounds weird once I say you understand. The people that he fought all the time were the Bradys, Ronald and Donald, right? So I'm going to put them, like, right there with him, because they were always battling back and forth. And I was actually pleasure to be able to spar one of the Bradys. It was later in their career, but it meant a lot to me to be able to fight them at the Diamond Nationals one time. And then I got 2 more. The other one's going to be my teammate, Robbie Lavoie. I mean, we've been sparring each other since we were like 10 years old, like same age group. And they used to break it up short and tall, right? And I was never in the tall division. He, of course, was never in the tall division. So, I mean, we spar each other all the time. And it's crazy how now we're on the same team and still competing alongside each other. But I think he is amazing, especially for his size. He's always like the smallest weight category and one of the best to ever do it. And he's still doing it. So I put Robbie Lavoie on there. And then myself, I put myself up there as well.
That's awesome. I respect that a great deal. And by the way, for everybody tuning into this, think about how that would do as a team fight, right? If you had that roster on a team fighting lineup, I mean, that would be absolutely insane. But yeah, I mean, that's one of my favorite things to do, because I'm a nerd about sport karate history. So I love just looking back and like seeing, like, you know, who would have fought, who could have beat who, and like who's better than who. And it's a conversation that I really enjoy. So now let's shift it a little bit and say, who's somebody, you mentioned that you were fortunate to fight one of the Bradys towards the end of their career. Who's somebody that you never got a chance to fight that you really wish you would have gotten to, just out of respect for that other person?
I mean, when I was a kid, I used to watch a ton of people, and I never really thought about like sparring. I just always like kind of looked up to them. So I'll list off some people that I always looked up to, and I think it'd be a pleasure fighting. When I was on Victory for a while, so Ninja Fitzpatrick, he is a heavyweight who had like great movement. Never got a chance to spar him. I think he was very underrated, and a lot of people kind of overlook him when they're thinking about past fighters, but I thought he was awesome. Who else could I put up there? Brian Plimple, another big heavyweight, again, role model that I always looked up to, amazing fighter. Chris Malaris, he's more my size, a middleweight, fought for IDC I always watched him as a kid, and he was always like doing crazy spinning axe kicks and some different techniques. So yeah, probably some of the guys that are just kind of above me in generation that I never got a chance to step on a mat with. But yeah, I'd say those three would be some awesome fights to be able to match up with.
For sure. And some incredible fighters there. So we've been talking a ton about the past. Let's talk a little bit about the future. You've got a little boy at home, right? So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about him. Are we gonna see him on the mat in the future? Are you gonna breed him to be a sport karate world champion?
Yeah, well, he's got a good name. His name's Jackson. So yeah, he's awesome, man. He's always running around and smiling. He's just a happy kid. And yeah, of course, I mean, yeah, he's always walking around on the mats and hanging out. He loves it in here. So eventually, yeah, he'll be punching and kicking and be out there competing as well. I have a stepson who's Tanner. He's 11 and he's already competing, doing well. He travels around I'm kind of giving him the same format that I had. Right now he's on the West Coast a lot. He probably like in Hawaii, Nevada, the Bay Area. So he goes around competing. He does pretty good. So yeah, he's gonna keep going along. He eventually probably make it out to the East Coast. And but yeah, he just got his black belt in February. So he only did one black belt tournament, but he's been doing pretty good as an under belt. So he's making his way as well. So yeah, both of them are awesome and make me super happy every day coming home to seeing them.
That's awesome. And we'll certainly be rooting for them as they start to progress in their careers. And I think that everybody can just hope that we get another installment of the Iceman after eventually you hang it up. But at this rate, I don't think you ever will. So I think that we will appreciate that as long as we can. Now, going more into your life outside of actually competing, you also teach a ton of seminars. You're one of the busiest guys in the business. Right now, if people want to train with you, you're offering your Iceman Insights virtual fighting seminars. But I want to talk a little bit about your experiences traveling, because I always see you on social media and I'm like, I wish I was teaching seminars in half the places that Jack teaches seminars, going out to Hawaii and doing shark dives and everything else. So tell us about that. I guess first tell us a little bit about, seminars and the way that you go about it, and how, if there's any school owners watching, they can get in contact with you, especially once all this COVID-19 stuff is over. But then also maybe just a few great memories of some awesome seminars you've had or some great places you've been.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm teaching pretty much every Saturday at 12 noon Pacific time. That's my Saturday trainings. Always have a great group, and I'm always sharing just the tactics that I use and skills that I teach my students. Not just like how to blitz, but like more detail on it. So yeah, if anyone wants to join us, I'm always putting out flyers. Just follow me on Facebook or Instagram. Also, I just signed with a virtual martial arts tour. I'll be teaching, so that's a little bit earlier on Saturdays. It's 9 a.m. Pacific time, which is 11 a.m. Eastern time. So yeah, look for those as well. So I'll be teaching different times on Saturday. And yeah, traveling and teaching is awesome. I'm blessed to be able to not only travel around and compete, but getting in different dojos and just giving people a good experience and sharing my point of view on point sparring with people and what's worked well for me, and hopefully they can take that and make it into their own. Some awesome places that I love going. Of course, Hawaii. I have some great friends out there, and I always go out there, love hiking up in the mountains, or in the water with the sharks or dolphins, and surfing. I mean, it's just an amazing place to be. It's just like magical. So yeah, I'm blessed to be able to go out there and do what I love doing, and be able to enjoy the magic of the islands out there. Some other places I go that I really enjoy. I go up to Reno, Nevada. I work a lot with the Ambas, and a lot of like the Bay Area comes out to there. I get up to go up to Tahoe, and yeah, I love that region as well. And the people up there are so nice and so friendly. They're like family to me. And then also going out in Europe, I've taught a lot. Like I've done different tours in England. I love the English fighting style and how tough they are, and they're always super hungry to learn. And also I've done tour in Italy with Raymond before, and be able to just go from like city to city in Italy was pretty cool. Just getting a different culture, different food, and having a great time with a great friend.
That's awesome. And those are some great memories. And next time you get booked to go out to Hawaii, if you want to do like a partner forms and weapons fighting seminar, just give me a call. I'm more than happy to do it. That'd be awesome. And so let's see, what do we got next here? Talked about favorite place, talked about seminars. Oh, I also did want to talk a little bit more about Virtual Martial Arts World. Like you mentioned, it's awesome that they signed you because it's a really, really cool product. We actually do the same thing with Forms and Weapons as well for the CMX guys. So just head on over to virtualmartialartsworld.com. If you're a fighter, you can train with some amazing fighters. Jack, of course, Avery Plowden, Morgan Plowden, among other excellent fighters that they have, teaching seminars every single week. On the Forms and Weapons side, we have all Team Paul Mitchell members, myself, Mackenzie Emery, Reed Presley, and Sammy Smith coming to you every week with new seminars. So that's a really cool product. That's on virtualmartialartsworld.com if you guys want to check that out. And then now I guess my last question for you, man, is what's next? I know that Virtual Fight Tour is kind of the big thing that's going on now. So do you know how soon we might see you back with that promotion? Let's start with just that. Do you know what's next for Virtual Fight Tour?
Yeah, I mean, I know they got another card coming up. It's actually on my birthday, October 24th. So I'll be tuning in and watching that. But yeah, I've been talking with Jesse and I told him I loved it. Love to do it again. So yeah, we don't have anything planned yet, but I'm sure we'll have things in the works coming up soon. And then hopefully by 2021, things start getting moving in a positive direction. Maybe back in the tournament scene, if it allows. If not. Like I said, I love doing a virtual tour and would love to do that again. So no dates or nothing scheduled right now. Just got done 2 days ago fighting Bailey on the last card. So yeah, looking forward to the next virtual and watching that card, and then we'll see what's in store.
Absolutely. That's going to be a great card they got coming up, headlined by Chance Durner versus Cam Dawson, which is a call-out fight, which is going to be really exciting. Now, are you able to say anything? Have you been bouncing around any names for who your next fight might be? Are there any ideas, or are we keeping that on the down low?
No, we haven't mentioned any names or nothing yet. So I mean, like I said, I was just super focused on my last fight. Wasn't worried about anything else, and so yeah, I'm sure that'll play itself out soon enough.
Absolutely. And the mindset of a champion for sure. So the last thing is just long-term, looking ahead to the rest of the career that you've got here in sport karate as a competitor, as an instructor. What are your goals for the future? What are you looking at moving forward? What do you have your sights set on?
I just love doing what I do. I mean, as long as my body allows me to do it, I'm going to keep doing it because it's fun to me. I enjoy the grind. I enjoy the training. I enjoy, the being on the mat and competing one human versus another. So yeah, as long as my body holds up, I'm going to keep doing it and keep challenging myself. It was a big challenge to take this last fight, and I'm going to keep doing it. That's what makes it fun. Some people ask me like during the seminars, like, oh, don't you get nervous, competing and everybody watching? And I'm like, yeah, I get nervous, but I mean, I'd rather be fighting on a bigger stage with everyone watching and getting those nerves. Because I've also fought like in a gym where everybody's already left and it's just me versus somebody else. And like, it's like, all right, like it's not, it doesn't bring, the best out of you. Right. So I'd rather the stakes be high than, just fighting for a couple bucks in a backyard somewhere. So yeah, I just want to keep competing, keep teaching, keep growing the school. It took a hit, well, obviously, just as all the schools did with COVID. But things are starting to move in a positive direction. Want to keep building it back up and getting even stronger than it was before.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, Jack. This has been awesome, going all the way from, current events in martial arts and what you think about some of the rules, and then looking at some of the history, and then obviously talking about the future, both with your future goals and talking about your son and stepson. Thank you very much for your time. Some great insights. For anybody that's tuning in right here at the end of the show, definitely rewind this. Go ahead, go back and watch the whole thing because truly a special opportunity to speak with one of the all-time great fighters. Any closing thoughts or comments from you, Jack?
No, just thank you so much for the opportunity to coming on. I had a great time. Hopefully everyone enjoys it, and yeah, keep looking out for me in the future. I'll still be out there competing and teaching.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Jack, and thank you so much to all of our audience that has tuned in. This is the Jack Rudolph podcast. This has been episode 39, brought to you and made possible by Black Belt Magazine, and I'll see you guys next time.